Grandma's hand was cold, trembling against mine, but her grip was stubborn, almost desperate. Her eyes, dimmed with age but still fierce, locked onto mine. "Look behind the frames," she whispered, voice brittle but urgent. Then she exhaled one last time and slipped away. I thought she was confused, delirious, hallucinating. But that night, in the silence of her empty house, her words echoed. I moved to the mantel, touched the frame she always loved, her favorite family portrait. My fingers found something strange taped to the back. An envelope thick and dusty, bound in yellowed electrical tape. My heart pounded. My hands shook. I opened it. The morning sun filtered through the thin curtains of my small apartment, casting stripes across the kitchen counter. I poured coffee into a chipped mug, the bitter aroma curling around me like a familiar hug. My phone buzzed with notifications, messages from colleagues, reminders about meetings, but I ignored them. Today felt off. Maybe it was the emptiness after Grandma's funeral, the echo of her last words lingering in my chest. I ran my fingers over the rim of the mug, feeling the tiny chips, the roughness that always made me hesitate before sipping. Grandma had left me her apartment key on the kitchen table, tied with a faded ribbon. I remembered her humming as she prepared breakfast for me every Sunday when I was a kid. Those memories were warm, grounding, but now tinged with unease. Work was another world. I managed a small antique shop downtown, the kind where dust clung to mahogany shelves and forgotten treasures whispered their histories. People often asked why I loved it so much. Because every item tells a story, I'd say. But the truth was simpler. I liked uncovering secrets. Old letters, hidden compartments, unnoticed carvings. I had a knack for noticing what others overlooked. That morning, I arrived at the shop to the smell of polished wood and aged paper. The bell above the door jingled as customers trickled in, and I smiled, nodding politely. Mrs. Patel, a regular, lingered over a silver locket. It belonged to a war bride. I explained softly, recounting the story etched inside. Her eyes misted over. Moments like this reminded me why I kept the shop, why I preserved these fragments of lives long past. After closing, I'd usually head home to unwind with a book or a crossword puzzle. But tonight, Grandma's words gnawed at me. Check the frames. Why? What had she seen, or remembered, that made her cling to that cryptic warning? My apartment, my routines, even my coffee tasted hollow as I replayed the day in my mind, feeling a chill I couldn't shake. Grandma had always been my secret keeper, my quiet refuge from the chaos of our family. My parents, well, they had their priorities. Appearances, social circles, keeping up with the neighbors. My cousin, David, thrived on attention, on being the favorite. And me? I was the invisible one, the quiet observer, the kid who always got overlooked at family gatherings. Over the years, I noticed the subtle ways they excluded me. My birthday gifts delayed, my achievements glossed over, dinner conversations where I was spoken to, never listened to. I learned early that being polite and invisible was safer than demanding recognition. Grandma saw it though. She'd pinch my shoulder gently, whispering, "One day, they'll have to answer for ignoring you." I never understood what she meant at the time. It started small. A missing check, an unexplained charge on my credit card, a family heirloom lost in the attic. My parents shrugged, laughed it off, said I was imagining things. David always had a way of smiling just enough to deflect suspicion. And me? I swallowed my hurt and convinced myself that family was complicated. But Grandma knew. She had kept meticulous notes, receipts, letters, photographs, phone messages, all carefully hidden behind her favorite frames. I only learned the scope after she died. I discovered the first envelope taped behind a picture of her and my grandfather on their 50th wedding anniversary. Inside were invoices for items I'd bought, without my knowledge, charged to my bank account. Receipts for furniture, electronics, even trips David had taken. All paid using money from me. The betrayal stung, not just financially but emotionally. The people I trusted most had manipulated my life. They had hidden greed behind smiles and hugs. It wasn't just money. There were photographs, secret meetings, casual but incriminating snapshots showing conversations and handshakes that never included me. Plans I wasn't aware of, decisions made over my head, signatures on documents I didn't recognize. It hit me like a punch. My entire family had been living one version of reality for themselves, excluding me, using me, and laughing behind my back. And yet, Grandma's handwriting scrawled on small slips of paper was there, quietly guiding me. Check dates. Check signatures. Notice patterns. She had seen it all, pieced it together. And now it was my turn. That night I couldn't sleep. The house smelled faintly of wax and lavender. Grandma's scent clinging stubbornly to the corners. I paced the living room, hands brushing over frames, looking for the envelope. My fingers paused over one large family portrait, the one above the fireplace. Something felt off. There was a bulge at the top edge, subtle, almost imperceptible. I tore the tape carefully, heart hammering. Inside, photographs of my parents, David, and my aunt, laughing with a man I didn't recognize, signing papers, exchanging envelopes. Receipts from banks, canceled checks, contracts. All pointing to one truth. My family had been siphoning money from Grandma's estate for years, hiding it under layers of legality, pretending innocence. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook. All these years, all this time. I whispered, voice raw. I sank onto the floor, pressing the envelope to my chest. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was intimate, deliberate, knowing. They had erased my place in the family, replacing it with David's ambitions. I thought of the family reunion last month. My birthday. The subtle glares, the whispered jokes. All of it made sense now. They weren't forgetful or careless. They were calculating, and I had been blind. I could feel a slow, burning anger rising, mixing with grief. But anger wasn't enough. Grandma wouldn't have wanted me to scream or destroy. She had left a path, a quiet, relentless path. And I would follow it. Sleep abandoned me. I walked the halls of Grandma's house like a shadow, clutching the envelope. I remembered the nights she had stayed up with me as a child, whispering secrets about our family, about the importance of noticing the unnoticed. I remembered the way she had looked at me the night before she died, eyes fierce, insisting I see what she had seen. I thought of all the moments I had felt invisible, all the quiet humiliations, all the betrayals ignored because I didn't know better. And I made a choice. I wouldn't just confront them. I would reclaim my truth. I spent hours going through the photographs, the receipts, the letters. I made notes, connected dates to events, tracked the movement of money, the signing of documents, the subtle smiles that hid malice. My hands were raw, my eyes stinging, but a clarity emerged. I could see the patterns, the deliberate omissions, the betrayals so carefully hidden. I remembered one winter evening long ago, when David had taken credit for an award I'd earned. Grandma had hugged me, whispering, "Patience. One day it will matter. One day, truth will matter more than their applause." I had laughed then, not understanding. Now the meaning hit me with precision. Grandma had been preparing me for this moment. I began drafting emails, planning discreet meetings with lawyers, double-checking documentation. I would not rush. I would not act in anger alone. I would use facts, precision, and the quiet weight of undeniable truth. Nights bled into early mornings. I pored over every paper, every photo, every signature. My body ached, my mind spun, but I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. The fire inside me wasn't rage, it was resolve. And it whispered one phrase over and over. They will answer. They will see. I started small. First, a discreet consultation with a lawyer specializing in estates and fraud. I handed over copies of the documents Grandma had hidden, explaining my suspicions. The lawyer raised an eyebrow, skimmed through the evidence, and nodded gravely. "This is substantial," he said. "You have a real case here, but you need to be meticulous. One mistake, and they could bury it." I spent days organizing the materials, creating timelines, annotating photos. Every signature, every date, every receipt had to be irrefutable. I felt like a detective chasing ghosts, connecting invisible threads. I reached out to a bank manager, carefully requesting records linked to the accounts Grandma had maintained. Some doors slammed in my face. Some calls went unanswered. I felt the frustration creep in. The same helplessness I'd felt when I was ignored as a child. But I reminded myself, patience, precision, persistence. Then came the first setback. A lawyer I consulted turned out to have connections to my parents' side of the family. I caught wind of it just in time. My stomach churned. The betrayal familiar yet sharper because it mirrored the past. I realized I couldn't rely on half measures or casual trust. Every step had to be mine, guided only by facts and Grandma's hidden instructions. I created copies of the envelopes, photographed each receipt, annotated each photo. I cross-checked bank statements with credit card bills, piecing together a ledger of deceit that spanned over a decade. Each discovery made my chest tighten, but also steeled my resolve. I was no longer the invisible observer. I was a force moving toward inevitable reckoning. Finally, I found an ally, an old family friend, Mr. Whitman, who had managed some of Grandma's investments. He remembered discrepancies, but had never questioned my parents' explanations. Seeing the evidence, he agreed to provide sworn statements. It was a breakthrough. I coordinated timelines, mapped out confrontations, and prepared legal filings. Each day was exhausting, mentally and emotionally, but I could feel the tide turning. I wasn't just seeking restitution. I was reclaiming the dignity my family had tried to erase. The day of reckoning came quietly, in the conference room of the law firm. My parents sat across from me, David fidgeting, my aunt avoiding eye contact. I presented the evidence methodically: receipts, photographs, letters, notarized statements. Each fact landed with clarity. There were no accusations, only undeniable proof. "This is your timeline," I said softly but firmly, placing documents on the table. "Every transaction, every signature, every decision you made without me. It's all here." My mother gasped, fingers trembling. David tried to interrupt, but the lawyer held up a hand. Silence filled the room, thick and suffocating. My father's face went pale. I don't know what to say," he stammered. "You don't need to say anything," I replied. "The truth speaks for itself." There was no yelling, no dramatic confrontation. Just the weight of facts, undeniable and complete. My family realized the scale of their deceit. My aunt covered her mouth, tears brimming. David slumped in his chair, staring at the evidence as if the floor might swallow him. Outside the room, I felt a strange calm. The fight wasn't over. Legal processes would continue. But the truth was finally out. Grandma's voice seemed to whisper in my ear. "You did it. You saw. You acted." Weeks later, the estate was settled fairly, with the misappropriated funds returned to Grandma's accounts. My parents and David faced consequences, professionally and socially, but I didn't savor their humiliation. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my own life. I returned to the shop, dusting the shelves, cataloging antiques with care. Each item, each hidden secret, reminded me of my journey. I felt a quiet pride, not from revenge but from the clarity, the justice, the reclaiming of my dignity. Sometimes, I walked alone through the park, the scent of wet grass and autumn leaves grounding me. I thought of Grandma, her hand warm in mine, whispering words that changed my life. I realized that revenge wasn't about punishment. It was about restoring balance, honoring truth, and asserting one's presence. I even reached out to Mr. Whitman, who became a mentor, helping me understand finances and legacy. Slowly, I felt a sense of belonging, not dependent on my family's approval, but earned through my own strength and persistence. Life didn't return to how it had been. It became better, clearer. I wasn't invisible anymore. I walked through spaces, shops, streets, my own apartment, with a quiet awareness, noticing details others missed, trusting my instincts, and holding myself accountable in ways my family never had. Weeks later, the estate was settled fairly, with the misappropriated funds returned to Grandma's accounts. My parents and David faced consequences, professionally and socially, but I didn't savor their humiliation. Instead, I focused on rebuilding my own life. I returned to the shop, dusting the shelves, cataloging antiques with care. Each item, each hidden secret, reminded me of my journey. I felt a quiet pride, not from revenge, but from the clarity, the justice, the reclaiming of my dignity. Sometimes, I walked alone through the park, the scent of wet grass and autumn leaves grounding me. I thought of Grandma, her hand warm in mine, whispering words that changed my life. I realized that revenge wasn't about punishment. It was about restoring balance, honoring truth, and asserting one's presence. I even reached out to Mr. Whitman, who became a mentor, helping me understand finances and legacy. Slowly, I felt a sense of belonging, not dependent on my family's approval, but earned through my own strength and persistence. Life didn't return to how it had been. It became better, clearer. I wasn't invisible anymore. I walked through spaces, shops, streets, my own apartment, with a quiet awareness, noticing details others missed, trusting my instincts, and holding myself accountable in ways my family never had.